Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we just put this section of the landing platform, ignore this, it didn't save or import correctly. This is not how it's going to end up looking. But we managed to drop this on Minmus with a few alterations, of course. So this is now happily on Minmus mining away, and what we need to get now is the actual platform here. And to that end, we're going to need, somewhere along the lines of 9 modular girder segments plus 3. So 12 modular girder segments and 9 of these grip pads per segment. So let me actually pull up a calculator here. There we go. And I realize that you can't actually see this, but that is okay. We need, of course, 12 times 9, so 108 modular girder segments. And then we, of course, need 81 grip pads, 9 times 9. So that'll be interesting to get those there. Plus, we're going to need this structure over here, which is, 5 modular girder segments plus another 2, so 7. So we're going to need a total of 115 modular girder segments and 81 grip pads. That does not take into account the actual arm here. Okay. Let's open up a new craft here, and this is going to be a remote guidance unit that's going to be driving it. There we go. We'll put in a little ASAS. We'll also put in a little battery pack. We don't need a huge one. Something along the lines of that should be fine. And then we're going to need a module on this for Bob to ride in, and of course that's in the pods. I think we'll just use a good old-fashioned Mark 1 command pod, unless a Mark 1 lander can is lighter, isn't it? Yeah, it is indeed. Okay, we're gonna bring the lander can like this. Excellent. Now, as far as the actual cargo, that's going to be interesting. We can only store 40 liters in the lander can. The question is a modular girder segment too big for that? I think the answer is yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Way too big. What about a grip pad? That's way too big too. Okay, what about just a strut? We can fit 4 struts in there. We'll do it. We're going to need struts. We're going to need quite a number of struts. I think at least 4. We're probably going to want a few more. So in terms of what we're actually going to be landing on this thing, we are absolutely going to want to bring in like some of these larger container modules, like this one here. And we're going to need quite a number of them, but I'm going to wait to duplicate them for now. Okay, we'll pin this open, and I'm going to put a few more struts in these slots first off. So I do wish that we could pick up multiple of these rather than doing it like this. Can we just alt-click on this? No, that just moves it. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put in 1 layer of struts here, like so. There we go. And then we're going to do modular girder segments to fill this out. So that is going to be 3, 4, 5. We can fit 5 modular girder segments, including the struts. Okay. That's not a lot, in all honesty. So we're going to bring in additional modular girder segments. I don't understand why they have fuel flow, but apparently they do. And we're going to put that in here. Can we fit only 5 in this one as well? Yeah, it's only 5. So I guess we may as well bring a few additional struts since we can fit them. I do wish when we copied it here that it copied the whole thing. But I don't think we're going to need any more than this number of struts, for sure. This should be more than enough struts, I think. Unfortunately, this is only 10 modular girder adapters, or modular girder segments. Their packed volume is quite large. There's no doubt about that. So we're going to bring in 5 more here, and I guess we can just bring in like 20 at a time, and then we can just bring multiple launches up here. So we'll bring in, say, 2 more here, and that will, of course, fill up here. Like so. That's too much, of course. And then this one. Excellent. So that'll be 20, and we're going to need to bring up quite a few more of these, in fact. That's okay. That is definitely something we can do. I do want to test and see how many grip pads we can bring in at a time. I know I already tested that. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoops. And we can bring 7. Okay. So what is our actual spacecraft mass here? 8.678 tons. That is really not too bad. This isn't bad in terms of weight. So we can bring 7 grip pads. My concern right now is kind of that of height, but I think it should be reasonably okay, in theory. I'm just thinking here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's duplicate these 3, bring that up to 10, and I'm going to fill all of these with grip pads. I want to bring up all of our grip pads right now if we can. I keep doing that. I need to stop that. So this is 7 each, like that. And then we would need them in here, like so. Okay. So how many total is this going to be in terms of grip pad containers? I think we can maybe bring almost this whole thing up in a single launch. That's 6. Okay. So we currently have 5, 10, 15, 20 struts, and then actually 25 struts. And then we have 7. So 7, 14, 21, 28, and 35. Okay, so that's 35 there. Sounds good to me. What I'm going to do now is we're not actually going to want to decouple this, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to put modular girder segments out here, and we'll be able to take those off and deconstruct this when we get to the surface, which is fine, by the way. So we'll put those there. That means that we have 29 modular girder segments on here. Then we're going to... Actually, let's do something like this. It's not going to be the most aerodynamic. And I do want to be able to attach it on here, ideally. I guess we're going to have to rotate it to be something like this-ish. I do want to move it out for sure. I do not like this. I do not like this at all. Yeah, this is a thanks I hate it right here. Okay, so what we're actually going to do is we are going to put radial decouplers on this and just never stage them, I guess. So we'll do something like that, and then can these not be mounted onto radial decouplers? Fascinating. I guess we'll need to put struts on this. Like modular girder segments out here. Something along the lines of that, even though we definitely want to move that and have it be, say, there. And then we'd be able to mount those like this if we had more distance. Okay, I can work with this. So what we're going to do then is we're going to put in a modular girder segment like that, and then we're going to look to rotate this guy and turn snapping off and have it be mounted in approximately like so. Although not exactly like that. I would prefer for this to be, you know, down here. About like that. And all we need for this to do is make it to min-miss, right? We can move this up a little bit like that. And that gives us a fair amount more storage capacity. So we already determined that we have 35 of these. So we're going to put additional grip pads in here. This will be an additional 7, so that'll be 42. We know that we need 81 of them. So that's 7 there for 42. 7 here for 49. Whoops. Let's not do that. 7 here for 49. Like so. And then 7 here for 56. like so. There we go. And then over here, we're going to put in an additional 7, which will, of course, get us up to 63 grip pads. Fantastic. We're getting close. We're going to duplicate this, and we're going to go down, and then this will put us up to 70. Like so. And then this one here will put us up to 77. Like so. And then this one here will, of course, put us up to 78, 79, 80, 81. Okay, that's all of the grip pads we need. Now, we already know that we have 25 plus an additional 8 modular girder segments here. So we have, what is that, 33. And we need like 115, something along those lines. So we have 33 right now. Let's go ahead and do modular. Excellent. And we're going to put in 1, 2. I believe that's all we can fit here. Yes. So that brings us up to 35. Over here, we're going to go up to 40. And that's actually kind of perfect that puts it into a multiple of 5. Nope. This is 40 there. And if we have to bring more, we always can. All right. We're going to need to duplicate this again. This will, of course, be 45. Excellent. And this will then be 50. So we're about halfway there on our modular girder segments. Fantastic. And this doesn't take into account the arm yet. We will attempt to put the arm into this flight if we can. If we have to cut it, that's not the end of the world. But I do want it to be there because we absolutely have to have the arm because it has to be attached to be able to run a fuel line anyway, so we might as well have it. Okay. How many was that? Was that 60? Well, we know there's 25 in here, 33, and then that puts it up to 35. So that would be 40. That would be 45, 50, 55, and this down here would then be 60, I think. I'm having a hard time keeping track. That's okay. We're just going to fill all of these up for now. I know that we're probably going to need more than what we've got here, so that's okay. We'll go ahead and put a modular girder segment in each of these, of course. And I think we'll run this down either 2 or 3 more cargo storage units. Is that all of these full? Not this one. Okay. So we'll do this. No, actually, I don't want that in this style. There we go. They've got the different styles, of course. And we are going to go ahead and duplicate that again. And we're going to keep filling this. I think we're going to be very close to having the correct amount, but I can't be bothered to figure out if we actually have the correct amount or not. It's going to be a lot. And we should, in theory, be able to make do with it, I think. So we'll continue to put this in here, and then landing this thing is going to be a whole nother question. Like landing and takeoff, that's definitely going to be another question. We'll tackle that when we get there. For now, we can still fit a few more modular girder segments in these. Oh, I don't actually want that style. There we go. Actually, I kind of don't care. But I wonder if we can change it on Minmus. That'd be interesting. Well, we're going to grab these out of here. Okay, and let's just check all of these side tanks. I believe they are all filled up. Yes. Okay, I think we're going to do 2 more. Something like that. So we're going to put 5 in each of these, of course. And then we will see how we're going to lift this thing off. But it should be relatively light, all things considered. I mean, realistically, this is already 37 tons. That's not that light. These cargo storage units are very heavy, but we need them not for their inventory capacity, but rather for their volume capacity. That's what we need here. Okay, so we'll get all these full. And then these over here, of course. Nope. Do that. 5 of them over here. 4 and 5, and then we'll do 5 more here. This should, I think, be enough to construct this. Now the question is, how exactly are we planning on landing this monstrosity? Honestly, lifting it off is not as bad as landing. These are not currently... Oops. Uh-oh. Yeah, that was a big mistake. Okay. We're going to have to redo all of these. Oof. That does not feel good. Okay. So, lifting this thing off and landing it are going to be two completely separate challenges, right? And they're going to be very interesting challenges at that. Okay, so we're just going to put all these in here, like so. Our weight is already pretty high. This is a very heavy payload. I mean, this is not a surprise considering how many construction materials we are sending up, right? But we can do something like this, and I'm hoping that we can cram the entire robotic arm into one additional cargo storage unit. That would be ideal. We'll see if that's accurate. This is already up over 40 tons. Which is going to be certainly interesting. Lifting it off. But we'll see how we tackle that in a moment. Okay. So I believe that is all of these fully loaded at this point. Or as fully loaded as they need to be. We're of course going to have to create some way for our Kerbals to move around in min-miss gravity out here. And I think the way that we're going to do that is just by coming over here. I'm actually going to rotate this. I want it to be not snapping. Actually, we're going to have to rotate it with the rotate tool is what we're going to have to do here. We're going to rotate this to be about here. Okay. And then from there, we'll do a ladder. And it'll be just this mobility enhancer. We're only going to have the one here. We don't need the extra weight. And that's going to go down to there, and then we're going to put another one down to there, and then another one down to there, which should, hopefully, be far enough to reach the ground. Okay, now as far as actually landing this thing goes, that's going to be interesting. This is a lot of mass to min-miss, right? It's a whole lot of mass. I mean, we're going to have to strut this, for sure. Otherwise, this is going to be rocking all over. So I'm just going to, in quad symmetry, put in a strut like this, as well as I'm going to put one in up here. Like that. So hopefully that will, you know, be relatively rigid. This is not exactly aerodynamic, but it's a lot more aerodynamic than trying to lift the actual pad. So that's something. Okay, we're going to not have these start extended. There we go. In theory, we're not going to need much for solar panels on this. I'm just going to put in a couple of 1x6s, and I'm going to put in 2 of them. And they're going to be put in, say, no, not quad couple, bicouple that. We're going to put them in, say, there. That'll do. Kind of weird, but it'll do. Okay, now as far as actually landing this thing goes, that is going to be interesting. What is the size of this? Is this Rockamax size right now? Yes, we are Rockamax size. Oops, I did not intend to do that. Let's do that. Hopefully it put those back. Yes, it did. Fantastic. Okay, so we are Rockamax size. I'm actually going to go ahead and save this as the pad builder. Excellent. We'll save that. And then we are going to definitely put in some, like, a Rockamax 32 tank here. I think I'm actually going to also put some in over here. This is a ludicrous amount of weight already, and I'm interested in seeing just how terrible our thrust to weight is with a single Poodle engine in min-miss gravity here. Our thrust to weight is actually plenty high. I mean, min-miss has basically no gravity, so this would be acceptable if we can get it lifted. If we can get it lifted. So we're going to go ahead and put struts in down here as well. Make sure that that is nice and connected. In theory, this never becomes disconnected. And then we are going to go for landing struts here. Just the largest that we've got, LT2s. And I'm going to place them here. Actually, as low down as it'll... Well, not as low as it'll go, but like there. I'm also going to place them here. So we'll have a total of 8 landing legs, which will hopefully be enough to hold this mass. I don't know that it will. And hopefully it'll be wide enough as well. That's the overall point here. We'll start those retracted. I really should use action groups for them, shouldn't I? But I won't, just to make people upset. I'm kidding. But in reality, I am not going to use action groups at this time because I'm actually shocked that this lander has 15.99 thrust weight ratio, but okay. That's completely fine. So let's go ahead and put in some decouplers here. And this is not, this is decouplers. What am I even talking about? We're going to put in a TD25 here. We're also going to put in TD25s over, because this is a very heavy thing, right? We're going to put in TD25s over here as well. And those are all going to go off theoretically at the same time. And what we're going to do then is we're going to go for just a Rockamax tank here. I want just Rockamax. Okay, so Rockamax tanks here. We're going to go for an X200 here to get us roughly the same height. And then we're going to go for, say, an X200X... Actually, we're going to go for a Jumbo 64 here, quad. And we can already see here that this is a ludicrous amount of weight. Now we're going to do a Jumbo 64 here as well. And I do want to get a little bit of lower edge here. So this is actually good for the legs as well. We're going to lower this down just a tiny bit. Is that enough? I want one more tick, I think. How's that? Yes, that is approximately correct. So we're already strutted in here. I do want to strut in down here as well. And we need to consider that all of this is in a single stack. Oh, right, we've got the separators here. What am I talking about? This is not all in a single stack. Fantastic. And we are then going to put on, like, 5 mainsails on this. This is very expensive. What's that thrust to weight looking like? 1.93. Not too bad. And then we're going to do some fuel flow. Like so. So all of those are going to flow from the outside in. And this center core will burn a lot longer than these outside cores. Which then, of course, means that we want that decoupling to happen like that. Is this enough to get us into orbit and then into the surface? The answer is a definite maybe. I'm not used to that not being the root part. Okay, we're going to move that up. And, I mean, our thrust to weight is good, right? Our thrust to weight is very good. So there is that. To the point where maybe we should downsize these from mainsails to a slightly more efficient engine. Instead of mainsails, perhaps run skippers? We could do that. That might give us more thrust to weight. Or, well, it would be less thrust to weight, obviously. That's too little thrust to weight. Okay, so we gotta do mainsails. And the question then becomes, this is quite a monstrosity, right? What are the aerodynamics of this? And my bet is awful. Absolutely awful. But what I'm thinking right now is maybe we run tail fins. Not these tail fins. Aeroplane tail fins. Out here. Like so. Actually, up here. Like so. And then an additional unit of tail fins down here to give us more control. So that's apparently... Well, this is a 3.16 thrust to weight once these fall off. 73 seconds. This is a 0-second burn? Hang on. Something isn't right here. Something absolutely is not right here. Is it this external fuel duct not flowing? I'm not sure. Maybe this hasn't calculated correctly. I'm going to save this, and we're going to do a simulated launch here just to see how bad it is in terms of the aerodynamics. It's a Frankenstein. There's no doubt about that. We're going to give it a go, and we'll see how this goes. We don't have anyone in the pod, I don't think. We shouldn't, anyway. But it's a simulation, so we will be reverting it 100%. Either way. Okay. This is going to be interesting. So, first thing I want to check, what's this fuel flow going to be like? Oh, you know what the problem is? The problem is because I have this staging wrong. There we go. Okay, so we're off the pad very, very swiftly here. This is not shocking. We're going to hit 100 meters per second and test the aerodynamics. I'm expecting fireworks here. No, not retrograde. Go prograde. Actually, that is surprisingly stable. That is shockingly good. Now, of course, we're leveling out too quickly, but we don't have to be doing that. We could be sitting like this. And in fact, I am going to get us a little bit more height here. There we go. We'll do something like that. And what's our separation going to look like? That's going to be very interesting for sure. So we've got about 5 seconds left in this burn. Let's see what our separation looks like. Okay. I'm not shocked by this. I'm not shocked by this in the slightest. Like I said, I was expecting fireworks. So we're going to revert that back. That was always going to be the case. It was a simulated launch, not a real one. And the reason that that happened, of course, is because this doesn't have a clean separation event. So we're going to ditch these decouplers, and we are, in fact, going to leave this as is. And we're going to put in additional standoffs here with radial decouplers up about here. And then we're going to attach this in right below, but we're not actually going to quite connect those up. This is even more of a Frankenstein at this point, but that should, in theory, fix that problem. We'll strut that in there, and that should hold it together, in all honesty. So this overall was more successful than I expected. Let's try this one more time simulated and see how our separation event goes. If the separation event goes fine in the simulation, then I am fine with launching this proper. Let's see how that goes. And we don't have any RCS on this because we don't need it. We don't have any KER on it, although we probably should, now that I think about it. I do want to have the bullseye. So, oh, right. There we go. Ignite. Actually, let's revert that back. The staging was wrong, and I do want to add in that KER before I forget. So let's fix that staging like so. And this should absolutely never fire. We never want this to go. I would like to actually disable these decouplers, but I wanted to use the decouplers for the exact reason that they're here. Oh, and I am noticing that I'm not sure that we have fuel crossfeed here. I'm going to run fuel lines in here just to make absolutely sure. Like that. That was not in symmetry mode. Like that. Okay. So we'll save that. And I don't know why we have 615 meters per second up here. That's a little odd. But we can address that once we get to Minmus. Let's go ahead and run this test here. I do want to add in that KER before we go. So we'll just put that in, say, right there. Fantastic. And again, I want that for the bullseye that it puts on the ground. So that should be absolutely fine. Well, are we going to load? Yeah, we're going to load. Fantastic. This is such a disgusting Frankencraft. Like, I hate it so much. But it will only fly this once, and then it will never be flown again, I hope. This is, of course, the simulated flight. This is not its real flight, but it should have plenty of rigidity. And just checking to make sure, yep, we're not pulling fuel from this stage. That is fantastic. And let's check those aerodynamics. They look good. Yep, aerodynamics definitely look good here. I'm going to pull us over to the 45-degree marker, and let's just see how high our apoapsis gets here. And let's also test our stage separation. That is the primary purpose of this test. Yep, so far this is all looking good. Like, this is surprisingly good, considering what we're hauling here. So here's our separation. That was inauspicious. Okay. So we clearly need to work on the actual separation event there. Everything else is working fine. These radial decouplers perhaps need to be a little bit more explosive. So instead of using these are what, TT70 radial decouplers? Yeah. We could crank up their ejection force if it's not already maxed. It is. We could instead do an explosive decoupler, perhaps? But yeah, the core issue here is that the one that is going into the wind is in fact not detaching off to the side because there's air pressure going in this way and it's getting pushed into the center core. That's the core issue here, and we need to fix that for sure before we can actually launch this. The question is, how do I want to fix it? I think we might be better off taking these off and actually putting in a little bit more fuel down here to make this stage a little bit longer so that when it rotates around its center of mass, it rotates this direction and doesn't impact our engine, or rather impact us here, which is where it was impacting us previously. So I think maybe what we should do is put in like an X16 or maybe even an X32 in quad symmetry here, and then put in an additional mainsail, and then we could maybe... Actually, I don't want to. I don't think I want an additional X32 fuel tank in here. I do want to strut this together out here, and we'll see how that goes. What's our thruster weight? 1.6? Okay. Let's see how that separation goes. I think it'll be a little cleaner. Once again, this is a simulation. We're just checking stage separation. We're looking for a nice Korolev cross, in all honesty, but we don't really have that much ejection force on our decouplers, so I think that that's the core issue here. A little slower off the pad. This is not shocking. But this does mean that we run these engines for a little bit longer, so that is actually probably a net positive for us. Now, one thing we could do is we could just go straight up. That is one thing that we definitely could do. It's also a thing that I'm not going to do right now. If we have to do it, then I'm okay with pursuing that. But for right now, I would like to find a solution for going up at approximately this angle, to get at least some horizontal speed in there. We've got another 40 seconds of burn on this. We are drifting. Like, we're having a little bit of attitude control issues at this speed in the atmosphere. And that is, again, because we are struggling with our aerodynamics a little bit. We're able to control it reasonably well. What we're not able to do is hold that attitude particularly well. So we may have to go for a less efficient ascent trajectory, but that's probably okay. Let's see how this stage separation goes, and if this goes poorly, I'll revisit, like, go back to the drawing board on this. Okay, they really like to twist off because of the wing on them. We may see if we can go about dropping that. And I mean, you can see here, we're quite low, right? That's expected. And we're actually losing speed right now because our thrust to weight is 0.9. If we were up a little higher, it wouldn't make too much difference, but I mean, I'm not surprised that we're going a little slow here. So let's go ahead and bring that back. I do think that that was an improvement on the detach. Let's see about just dropping those. What does that do to our aerodynamics? It makes us a little more stable. Okay. I want to run one final simulation of this. I know we've been doing a lot of simulations on this, but this is a complex mass to lift for sure. So let's go ahead and do this. And in theory, this should go fine. I'll be interested to see if our attitude control is that much worse. If it is, then we're probably just going to go up pretty much straight and then turn sideways once we're up high enough, which is not an efficient way to go about it, but it may be our only option with this particular payload. This is a weird payload. There's no doubt about it. A very heavy, very wide payload here. Okay, let's do a stress test on our aerodynamics. That actually looks really good. With the 5 gimbal engines, that worked very, very well. Let's see about holding this 45-degree attitude as we continue to accelerate dramatically. Yeah, you can see here, we're getting pushed over this way a little bit, and that is because of what I was talking about with the aerodynamic forces previously. That is what caused this tank here to impact this tank in previous separation events. That said, if we can push up higher, then the atmosphere will be thinner when that detachment happens, which will buy us more time. So sitting here rather than going flatter is actually really good for us for that exact reason. Now, we're not moving particularly quickly here, and that's okay. I'm not going to call that a clean stage separation, but it was an acceptable stage separation. And you can see here that our thrust to weight is doing pretty well. Our orbital velocity is still increasing. Our time to apoapsis is coming down. However, our thrust to weight is improving. I'm a little bit concerned about the thrust to weight of this stage here. I would like to lessen this stage's weight a little bit. But overall, it will be okay, with the slight exception that I don't care for how much delta V that we have already burned and how much we have left. Like, I don't care for how much delta V that we would have to use from this stage to get into orbit. Our time to apoapsis is increasing, but we're basically burned out on this. So this stage is underpowered. Period. End of story. And this stage is wildly underpowered for this. This is not intended to be here. So we're definitely going to have to work a little bit harder on this. So we're going to bring that back. We know now that our first stage is pretty underpowered. This is a very heavy payload, keep in mind. So it's no wonder that this is a little bit of trial and error here. We may need additional strap-on SRBs or find some way to extend this burn time. I'll think about it in between episodes. This one's gone pretty far over, so we'll come back to this in the next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.